Hey guys, this is Ryan from El Topo Loco, giving you guys another deck profile. Some of you might know me better as Brohan if you guys are on Untap a lot, like I am. Uh, as you can tell, I'm a red player. Last time I showed you guys Hercule. This time I'm going to show you guys Bulma with the new set 11 cards. I'm actually going to show you two different profiles. My original one is 60 cards, and most recently I've decided to cut it down for more consistency and get rid of some of the clutter. And I'll show you the, I think, slightly better 55 version. But the 60 card version is still pretty good. It's just harder to dig through the deck. But luckily, Bulma does draw a lot. I'll show you guys both deck profiles and explain why I had to switch it up a little bit more, other than just the consistency issue. So, first of all, our leader is pretty not great in the sense of being an attacker, showing any aggressiveness. It's a 5K on the front side, 10K on the back side. But the nice thing about both sides of this leader is you do not have to actually swing in order to get a draw. So some decks want you to awaken them early, or they self-awaken, and by self-awaken them earlier by trying to get that extra draw in, sometimes you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. Or decks like Vegito, they want you to kill a blocker and awaken, and if actually you could stall them out from awakening for a few turns and get your setup all good, you're pretty much golden then. So this is nice. It's also one of the few untapped 2 red leaders. I was actually surprised to see how few of them they actually were. Originally, this was a hit deck, and hit was actually pretty good. The only problem with hit, it's a little bit more aggressive than this one. This one's more passive. But the problem with hit is two things. One, hit has to self awaken. Its front side's not that good, and it really shines on the back side. And the second thing is, you really have to, because you have to self awaken, you have to bring yourselves down to a low life. There's a lot of aggro decks out there, and since hit has some defenses to it, but not a lot of it, it's really hard for red to do well. And then the final reason was hit was only an untap one, and it made the curve even weirder than it actually is, even in this deck. So it kind of like made Topo almost completely useless, and Topo is one of your best defenses. So I decided to switch it up to Bulma. So first off, Bulma makes all of your red and yellow Earthling cards into blockers, which is great. Now, there are no yellow cards in the main deck. The only side deck card we have that's yellow is the Ape, but you're mostly only siding that in for hand control anyway. But the main pieces you want to get off uh, are basically this unison here, and then the Gogeta down here. And when you have those two up, including a few blockers, this deck builds an iron wall, and its defenses are so strong, it's really hard to push through. Now, you might not be surprised with that with a Bulma deck. Bulma has always been very defensive, but the difference is this one has a lot of aggro to it as well. So let's get into the deck profile. So first of all, we need a lot of cheap 1K or 1 cost guys that are going to become blockers. So this is a really good card. We'll start with this Bulma here. Uh, this is really good because not only are you drawing a card, it becomes a blocker itself, and then it also has an activate main effect where if you tap one, you can take any one of your red Saiyans from the drop area, replay it with its skills negated, which doesn't matter because it's going to get blocker anyway in the next turn. And the main card that you would want to pick would be the Son Goku over here. Another good turn 1 play is just to leave red energy open, get a negate for Videl over here, play this card, negate it, and then it also becomes a blocker, so it's a 2-for-1. Uh, we can see that we are running the new Son Goku and Vegeta BR cards, and we're using those as our fusion pieces. And the other vanilla card we are using is the Son Goku over here. We're going to use him as a blocker. We could potentially also use these two as cheap blockers if we want as well. We could also summon these off of Bulma if we really needed a blocker desperately. Um, but we're mostly doing that for the Goku over here. The reason why the Goku is really nice in this version of the deck is because we are searching our vanillas out. So we are, even though Bulma does draw a good amount on the backside, we do want to make sure we are, by turn 4, getting our fusion piece out with this Android 8 over here. So this is searching all those vanillas. and it's really hard to miss because we got what is it, like 11 targets, I think. Um, so it's pretty good. And then once these Gokus are on the board, they all become blockers. So that makes your opponent not want to swing, or makes them have to sequence a little bit more not optimal, you know. And because of that, they maybe they're going to play their turn differently. The nice thing about this Goku being in Bulma is you could use that as a blocker, and in hit, usually you could just combo this card away and pop something. But with I've noticed with any yellow or blue players, a lot of the times they're tapping down this Goku, so you can't combo it, and most of the time they're tapping it down with the Zamasu super combo. So in this deck, you don't have to worry about Zamasu super combo because you could just block with it right away. Let's go to Vados Assistance right here. This is really good because it could, if you keep a blocker alive, you could block with it once, and if it stays alive, you then use Vados' Assistance, negate it and attack, restand the blocker, and basically with that one blocker, you stop 3 attacks. So Jiren is our main turn 3 effect, or turn 3 play. This is an amazing unison in here. So not only does it create a lot of defensive properties, it is very aggressive, and the tokens or the markers that you put on this stack up so high. Most of the time I'm always around, like, I want to say like 8 or 9, but I've had many games where I've had like up to 14 markers on this, which makes its activate main, or its activate battle, this is actually wrong, it should say activate battle for the -3, more potent, because you have so many markers. You could basically do it on both turns and still have enough markers on Jiren for counterplays, or just not worrying about it dying. So basically, when this card is out, any card they play, and it's your choice when you actually want to activate it, you get a minus 10,000 from it. So it could be on a battle card or a unison card. This is great against Vegeks because if they're playing their Go Tanks for free, you just pop it. You know, they can't play it for free. They basically have to hardcast their Go Tanks. It's good against Zeno because, again, you're taking a marker off of Zeno. So their first turn, instead of having 4 markers, it now has 3 markers, and it's a lot easier to manage. The other good thing is it's a 20,000 power attack, so it's not only really good on offense, it's really hard for them to actually commit to kill it. And if they do commit to killing it, they're usually wasting cards in their hand for it. And then finally, it adds a lot of pressure with the double strike. Every turn you just add 1 marker, it has double strike, so you have a 20k beater every turn. And then finally, its activate battle is a -3, and you can use this on both turns. Some people are getting that confused. You can use it on both turns as long as they are not swinging at Jiren himself. But the nice thing is, because all your cards are basically blockers in this, if they are swinging at Jiren with something big, you could just block first, and then you could activate his activate battle effect and possibly kill it. So it's going to minus 25k from any card ignoring barrier. And then you could also potentially minus another 10k from its auto when it was played. So that's potentially killing something up to 35k. So just the minusing ability is really strong in this deck. You also have Wolf Fang Fist. You could potentially minus something another 15k. So even like the secret rares aren't necessarily safe between a bunch of these combos. So this Bulma is good because it picks out this Goku over here, but this Android 17 is a nice little negate too. Unfortunately, he doesn't become a blocker, but he becomes a 15k beater. But you get to pick any red card with a cost of 1 and play it when he is played. So as long as they didn't activate Koitsukai, this card's great. And your main 2 targets would be Goku. Again, you could reoccur the Goku, get a blocker, and if there's Androids 8s out, you're going to be popping cards with the blocker. Or if you don't have the Goku, or maybe you don't have the Android 8s out, so it's not that great, maybe you'll pick a Bulma instead, and then you get a draw and a blocker out of it. We run this super combo. We don't run any of our rivals, so the reason why we are running this super combo is that at the end of the battle, Nappa gets played, and Nappa is a red Saiyan, so with Bulma's permanent, this is a free blocker. So sometimes you know you're not going to be able to combo out of the next attack, so maybe you combo out of one attack with a super combo, and then all of a sudden you get a free blocker, and then you could stop their next attack. Yamcha's your typical turn 2 play. It's great. The longer it stays out, the more value you're getting. So basically, it's a 15k blocker for 2 costs, which is really strong. And then at the very end of the turn, you get a draw card. It also could be a finisher potentially by tapping 2 red during its battle, and that's on, again, offense or defense, but usually you're using it on offense. It gains 15,000 power and double strike, so it's a possible finisher. You notice that we don't run any double strike Kais or double strike Champas in here because most of our battle cards that are finishers are double strikes naturally. Running 2 of these Gokus, this is just good because it has deflect, it's a board sweeper, and you could also potentially kill something with barrier between this and the unison and a few other things. It's just like their strong guys become that much less of a threat, and typically you're clearing their board all the time, whether it's one guy with his 2 red cost or you're sweeping their whole board with just its auto. Now, I know a lot of people have been saying this counterplay is the worst of the 4, and I can't really argue with that, of the free counterplays with their unisons, but this counterplay shines in this deck. Now, as some of you may have know, this card does not hit the card being played during counter window 1, but it hit potentially 2 other targets, and then it's a 15k beater. If it's played during window 2, if there is a window 2, it could hit the target being played. And again, this on top of maybe Jiren, we're talking about something minusing 25k just on that alone, and which is stopping most things in the first place. And if we have to go any further, we could also use our Jiren's effect to possibly further minus it. And the reason why this card is actually really good in this deck is because this becomes a free blocker, so you are never feeling bad about playing this. Even if they have no other battle cards and they're playing something on counter window 1, sometimes you just like, I need another blocker and I wasn't able to play anything else, or they swipe my board and I just need another blocker to live. And sometimes Yamcha's just there as like a surprise blocker. Say, here I am. Topo, self-explanatory. Best red negate in the game. There are a lot of answers to Topo, so you do have to be cautious when to use it. Sometimes comboing, if you have like 3 red energy open, using Topo, and then like on the next attack, if they are trying to push through, you counterplay with a or counter attack with Videl. So they had to discard 2 for nothing because of you got a negate, and then all of a sudden you have another blocker on the board. So a lot of times, if that's the only blocker, maybe they'll try to push through, but they're wasting so much resources. But if you have multiple blockers, they're not going to try to push through Topo because they're just wasting cards for nothing. So these 2 are the main package. This is your turn 4. Now, this does play on turn 3, but our curve's a little weird because we want to play Jiren first most of the time. It lets our Yamchas be able to get played, our Wolfang Fix be able to be played. You're minusing effects, you're doing double strike damage. This double strike damage alone is great against unison cards. So sometimes you're not even trying to give them cards in hand, you're just trying to kill their unisons. Again, since this is so hard to kill and their unisons are so easy to kill with this double strike effect, it's such good advantage. And then you're accumulating blockers as the match continues. This is typically your turn 4 play. You're going to union fusion with the Goku and the Vegeta in your hand. And then when you play this, you get a draw 2. So you're basically replacing the Goku and Vegeta that you used for the fusion. And then this card can't be KO'd, which is really strong. So this is a blocker that they can't kill. There are ways to get rid of it, but it's really hard to get rid of it. And when you play this card, whether hard casting it or union fusioning it, you get to add 1 marker to your unison. So again, your Jiren's just getting that much harder to kill, or you're letting that activate battle effect become that more potent. And then it also minuses 15 to everything on their field. So accompanying that with all the other things that we're minusing, it's really good at board sweeping. Typically on the same turn, you want to try to play this Gogeta on top of it for free. Now this Gogeta has deflect, so you don't have to worry about the Trunks counterplay. This one, if they do the Trunks counterplay, it just goes back to your hand. The EX Evolve is completely free, so if they Trunks counterplay it, you just play it again. It was never actually played in the first place, so you didn't really lose anything out of it. They just lost a card out of their hand. Uh, Neither of these can be hit by the Frieza counterplay because they can't be KO'd. So it's really good. The Vegeta could tap them, but no big deal if they get tapped. Um, and what's the other one? The Yamcha. You got to be a little bit careful of the Yamcha or even this counterplay because that could potentially kill it. This Gogeta, when he's played, you add 2 more markers. So not only do you +1 from your Unison's double strike effect, you're plussing 1 from this Gogeta, and then you're plussing another 2 more over here. So your Unison becomes super hard to deal with. This guy can't be KO'd too. And whenever he swings or whenever one of your opponent's cards attacks, and it doesn't matter which of their cards, Unison, Battle Card, Leader, you can choose to minus 20,000 to that card. Or you could choose any of their battle cards, actually, or any card. So sometimes I'll swing and they'll negate. All right, no big deal. I'll kill one of their monsters, or I'll take a marker off their Unison. If they're swinging at me, and I feel like it's going to be a lethal swing, I could minus their leader. So sometimes, like, people go in with double strike Champa on their leader because it's hard to interact with the leader. This allows you to interact with that leader. What else? It's essentially a triple strike on a Unison because you swing at the Unison. If they don't stop it, it's doing double strike to the Unison, and then you're also doing another marker off the Unison. So it's almost like a triple strike, and that accompanying with the Jiren, you could potentially get off 5 markers in 1 turn. So this is really annoying for your opponent to deal with. This could also be a blocker if you don't feel like swinging. Between this minusing 20,000 on their field and the Jiren minusing 10 and potentially another 25, and possibly these Goku blockers popping something, and maybe even counterplaying with the Vegeta over here. There's just so much stuff going on. It's really hard to kind of get through that wall once you build it up. That's why you don't actually mind about not swinging, because you could play the long game. In fact, I've even played the long game to the point of like milling my opponent out. Well, not milling, but like decking them out by just keeping a strong defense and make sure they don't kill me. This deck can easily become a best of 1 deck, just because a lot of times if you're playing it right, you just don't let them get to game 2 and you just win game 1, and then it's basically time. This Vegeta counterplay is very similar to this Goku. You have to be a little bit more careful against the Trunks counterplay because you waste 3 energy for nothing, but it boosts your leader a little bit. You're sweeping their board. This could even kill Indestructibles potentially because you're minusing 20,000. And again, with the Jiren Unison, even if that's a 30,000 Indestructible, you could potentially kill it. And then this also becomes a blocker. Same with this Goku if you hardcast it rather than do the 2 red. Almost everything in here is a blocker. I think the only things that are not blockers in here are the Android 8s, the Topos, and the 17 here. Everything else is basically a blocker. Now, this secret rare is not the actual secret rare we're using, so you probably have been confused. Why is this in here? Because you don't have any other greens other than the Nappas. This is supposed to be the secret rare red Broly card, but DBS Dex doesn't have it out yet. So pretend this is Broly. Pretend it's this guy back here, but as an SS4. So basically, when you play this Gogeta, you can't play any more battle cards for the turn. So you do have to make sure you sequence everything right. So the next turn, so we're looking at about turn 5, you can play this potentially. It's a barrier double strike, and it's basically makes your opponent's combo step mute. You subtract 5,000 onto their leader card, onto all their battle cards, and all their combo cards. So the only thing that's not being minus 5k permanently is their unisons. It also, and because of that, like, they have to either use their 10k combos or their super combos, and they're only 5ks, so it's really hard to defend against the Broly once he's out. And he's hard to KO because he has a barrier. So what else does he do? He also increases your leader's attack power by 10,000 for the next turn. So for the turn that you played it, and also your opponent's turn. So your weak Bulma then becomes a 20k. So it makes it a little bit easier to defend, and it also makes it a lethal swing, possibly. And then that's basically it for this deck profile. Oh yeah, one other combo you could do is if since you are going to easily get to 6 energy, if you don't have this guy already on the field from like turn 4, or they popped it or got rid of it, um, you can still hard cast this for 6 and then free play the Super Saiyan 4 Broly Secret Rare, because the uh, the effect of you can't play any more battle cards for the turn is only when you EX evolve it. So if you just normal summon it, it doesn't actually prevent you from playing other battle cards that turn. Um, so some problems I found with this 60 card version of the deck, as you can tell, I don't run any Self Awakening because I don't mind playing the high life game. A lot of times I'll stay at a high life and I'll just dwindle them down, dwindle their resources with all these double strikes and all these walls and everything that they can't push through. And there's been a lot of games I've won where I've never even awoken. Problem with that is you're not seeing as much consistency because you're drawing one every turn with the leader, and then they might even just leave you at 5 and not attack you anymore because maybe they're trying to get rid of the unison instead, which is nice because you're leaving some pressure, off your leader. But then you're like, ah, man, I really want to awaken because I want to get that untap out of it and do something major the next turn, or maybe I want to or maybe I just want to start drawing 2. So that's one problem. I also felt like I wasn't going through the deck as much as I liked to. So I decided to cut this down to 55. And let's pull up that profile right now. It's going to be very similar, but you're going to see that I cut this down from 3 to 2. I took out the Gokus out completely, and I limited my 8 package. I felt like I started seeing these Android 8s a little too much. And without the Goku, I didn't need this too much. It's mostly just for searching. Another thing, because you really do want to see these by turn 3 or 4 for the fusion. Uh, Another thing we cut out was the 17. Without the Goku, the 17 wasn't too strong. So we cut out like at least 5 or 6 cards. Again, this is supposed to be the Broly Secret Rare, but I found this to be a little bit more consistent, a little bit more strong. And the only additional thing that I added to this was the Saiyan Kaba. So I'm only having it at 2. Most of the deck has natural double strikes. So once they're at 2, they're in danger. This is adding a little bit more danger very cheaply. And Kaba is really good because I found with Vegeks and even Vegito, they'll leave you at 5 and try to kill you in one turn because your leader only untaps 2. So if you don't have any answers, it's not like you're drawing any more cards on your awaken turn. Typically, when you do want to awaken, it's on your own turn. You draw 1 with this Bulma, play something, untap 2, and then draw 2. So you're drawing 3 on your awaken turn. But if you awaken defensively, the only thing that's really doing is keeping energy up for any counters that you have. And typically you don't want to do that because you're missing a card from your draw in that case. So I found putting 2 of these are good in there, just not only for the added pressure, but also if they try to stall you, well, now you have that awakened turn. You could utilize the 2 energy you can untap, and then you can start drawing 2 every turn and make this a lot more consistent and a lot more dangerous. Side deck, just real quick, Fu Shrouded Mystery just ends games. It's really good against blue. Ape is good against hand control. This is good against so many things, so I'm not going to be very specific about that. Denial of Hope. I've mostly cited that in for the Red Broly matchup. You screw up their chain, they're in trouble. This is for Invoker. This is for blue decks mostly, so they don't bean offensively, and this is permanently on the field. So, or this effect is for like the whole game. So even if I decide to use this as a blocker, they have to warp 5 every time they offensively untap. So it doesn't come up too often, but their beans become more defensive pieces, and it's nice against a Vegito deck because a lot of times they want to use those beans offensively to untap for their unisons to get that triple strike and plus 10,000 power. Or it makes my opponent try to figure out, like, hey, do I want to actually use cards to for Overwhelm, or do I want to untap offensively? This Broly is really good against especially blue again, because you get to look at their hand, rip something out, and then you also get a blocker out of that. I put Toa here because Koitsukai is a problem, especially against Vegeks. They're the ones like main decking it or maybe side decking it the most, I feel. And if they are playing something off their leader effect. Maybe they milled the Koitsukai and you see it in their drop, but then they get a free play Trunks or free play Vegeta. Well, then you can actually counterplay, play this card, draw a card. Unfortunately, it's not a blocker, but the thing is, you can remove that Koitsukai and potentially have a negate, whether it's Videl or Topo, or even a counterplay. You have that available without having to worry about discarding stuff. Vado's Assistance is really good against any Koitsukai decks because those turns you need to live, sometimes you just are restanding a blocker, especially this guy or this guy because they can't be KO'd. So that's with the side. The one thing I do want to mention is there are ways to remove these Gogetas. Some of them that I've seen, I felt like I've had like every possible way of getting them removed. One is minusing them to 0, so red decks or even the mirror match. It's really hard to keep them alive in that case. Other ways you could remove it is bottom decking it or bouncing it back to the hand. So Blue Zamasu is kind of pretty good at that. Or if you play the Gogeta that is a fusion for 5, you can bounce it back to hand. Other things you can do is you can warp him. So the Black Mass Saiyan, a lot of times can hit this because this is a 6-drop. It won't be able to hit anything else, but removing this is a big thing. Some unisons are able to sweep the board, like the Gotenks unison. I think they put them to the bottom of the deck. The Zeno unison sweeps the board, and I think it just shuffles it into the deck. So there are many ways to actually remove these Gogetas, so don't feel too confident when they're out, but for the most part, you're safe when they're out, especially with the Jiren. All right, so that's the deck profile. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I hear right now at PPG there is a Bulma deck out there that is undefeated. I don't know what their deck looks like, but I have a feeling there's probably going to be a lot of similarities because I heard it is mono red. I don't know, maybe they played me online, maybe they didn't, but I'm kind of curious to see what they have built. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Please like and subscribe, and have a good one, guys.